What's up, lore masters? So before you get your hate on, I personally think that even if Discovery isn't what a majority of the original Trek fans wanted, it still has some pretty interesting concepts that could have been great in theory, even if they don't seem to be in practice. Today we'll be analyzing the Mycelial Network. Let's just get into it. A lot of people scoff at the Mycelial Network given its continuity breaking aspects. The largest problems with the spore drive, in my opinion at least, is twofold. First, the utilization of a spore drive is science fantasy and not science fiction. That's not to say we don't see similar concepts in Trek here and there, but it never seems to be a staple. It's never been an entire arc of a season, in fact. And Star Trek shows have historically been more based in science fiction than science fantasy. Now, if I'm honest, this would be more a minor annoyance than anything else if it wasn't for the second part, which is the largest problem. That being how it completely breaks the concept of Star Trek Voyager altogether. That is, unless we see the Mycelial Network rendered completely inaccessible by Starfleet in the coming seasons, which hope springs eternal. If it just ends with, well, we don't want to harm humans, so we won't use it, that would show Starfleet either to be massively stupid. I guess when I think about it, there's also a third reason, being that the Mycelial Network is basically heaven. Now, whether you believe it's heaven or not, this is not something generally in the purview of Star Trek, so touching on it, I believe, is folly. However, those three problems aside, the Mycelial Network actually ties in and links to episodes in The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and even Enterprise. Ignoring the fantastical elements of the network, including it being some form of heaven, we'll more focus on the space travel and connections between the multiple realities. Trek has been inconsistent at best when it comes to the utilization and discussion of time travel. There are times in Trek when time travel appears to have little to no impact, other times when it has caused the event that was to occur, and indeed others when it has changed time altogether. To be frank, we see that Deep Space Nine episodes contradict episodes from the original series, which would contradict episodes from Voyager, which indeed contradict episodes from Enterprise in the way time travel is portrayed. However, I think that we can actually bring a cohesiveness to time travel in the Trek universe when utilizing information from Enterprise, Discovery, and TNG. Even though out of sequence, let's discuss TNG first. In the Next Generation episode Parallels, the concept of hypertime is introduced. Also, by the by, and something that will only matter to me, it was this episode that inspired my What If Borg video that went viral and made the channel, so I don't care if you don't care. Anyway, back to the discussion. Hypertime is the concept that any action that you can take, you will. And that action creates or is a part of a whole new and different reality. In hypertime, the person currently watching this is you, as you know you right now. But in another reality, you are richer than you are right now, in another you are poor, in another you're homosexual, and yet another you're heterosexual, and yet another you hate homosexuals. In another one from that, you love hopscotch, and so on and so forth. With the concept of hypertime in the franchise, it explains any time travel gaffes that we see. The time travel that occurs will ultimately create and have an infinite amount of realities that are impacted. To tie this back into Discovery, it's possible, and even something that I could see in Trek, to have some form of network that would connect these realities, the fabric of time itself. In Trek itself, this could very well be the Mycelial Network, the bindings that keep every universe together and continue the thread of creating even more realities. It does border on science fantasy, true, but I think it still follows within the scope of what we see of the science fiction of the show. I actually could very much see this being a TNG episode. If we continue on with this theory, then we can look at species like the Q and even future entities like a future Starfleet-like organization that is able to traverse time. Basically, it explains how future humanity, the Q, Organians, and others are able to do what they do. If the Mycelial Network binded all of the realities, then it is certainly possible that it also created the very essence of the realities that it binded. This also, in my opinion, fixes all of the continuity gaffes we see in all of the series in relation to time travel. If something doesn't make sense, if time changes in one instance but not another, or it looks different, it's because wherever was traveled to was a different reality or had a different impact. It also now gives us an explanation of how time travel worked in the temporal Cold War. In theory, it also explains how the Starfleet-like organization may have figured out time travel. Ultimately, I think the Mycelial Network hurts more than it helps. It's portrayed as heaven, a place where everyone goes when they die, and has a very odd way of working. That's not even to mention the fact that it's never brought up or discussed in Star Trek Voyager as a viable option to get back home. But it's important we give the writers their due when something is interesting and does fix plot holes. If we assume everything sucks, then we really don't make much of a point trying to change someone else's mind. You have to give credit when credit is due. So ultimately, I think the Mycelial Network does, at a base level, tie into other series. But those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. And guys, I'm going to see you on the next Lore Reloaded.